can trace first generation, second, third generation to their Caribbean roots.
Well, the story of Bermuda as it relates to us in St. Kitts, I will sum it up as a family.
Allow me a few minutes off camera and I'll find them Tigans in Bermuda for you. The story of us.
The story of us.
The story of us. The story of us.
Okay, the story of us. Let's begin by grounding ourselves in who we are. Before we talk about policy, membership, or economics, we have to start with identity, because how we see ourselves is essentially how we see ourselves moving forward. So this first section that we're going to start with is on identity, history, and the lived experience. Many of us know we have connections to the Caribbean. How many of you in here know that you have connections to the Caribbean? By a show of hands. Look around. Just look around for a second. Yeah? We feel it in our culture, our music, our food, our families. But I want to start by asking the panelists, starting with you, Minister. How should Bermudians understand the historical and cultural ties to the Caribbean today, and why does it matter in this particular conversation?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Moderator Dana, for being here this evening and being willing to steward this conversation. It's an important one, and when we think about our heritage and we think about our history, it is about the fact that even in this room, we have an identity that connects all of us. And to build on that identity and building and connecting it to the conversation about CARICOM, it's around joining a room of others who have the same challenges that we have and are navigating the same challenges that we have, and an opportunity to connect with them and be able to successfully navigate them together. As we see, there are geopolitical environments that are shifting rapidly, and we need friends before we need to make friends before we need them. And so the benefit of being able to have Bermuda have a voice and an ability to advocate what's best for it and its people is one that we are seeking through this conversation and through this initiative to advance and to strengthen our position in doing so.
Thank you, Minister. MP Famous, I'm going to jump to you right off the bat. We all know, most of us that know you, know that you have very strong connections and cultural ties to the Caribbean. How do you explain the importance today of having the conversation around our connection with historical and cultural ties to the Caribbean as a part of the wider discussion around CARICOM?
Good evening, everyone. I would say start with, let's say who we really are. When a lot of persons, when they say the Caribbean, they think, oh, everybody looks like Chris Famous, right? Most people in the Caribbean are mixed race, some are white, right? And so we've had this problem in our education system going back hundreds of years, that we've been told all these myths about the Caribbean. We've been all this fear mongering about, oh, those people are going to do this, those people are going to do that. And then when we look at who we are as Bermudians, I don't mean just black Bermudians, who we are as Bermudians in general, our country has been shaped by, yes, colonialism, but shaped also by persons being brought here from the Caribbean over the course of hundreds of years. So whether it's been education, whether it be in religion, whether it be in sports, whether it be in culture. When you look at names such as Hassel, Johnson, those are white Bermudians, but they come from Sable. There's Friths, there's the Butterfields, they come from Turks and Caicos. So I say that to say that we have to dispel the myths that Bermuda is not part of the Caribbean. We geographically were not, but culturally and historically we are. So that's my main purpose of doing what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, MD Famous. I want to touch on something that you just raised. You talked about the myths tied to our identity as being in the Caribbean. And that sort of leads into the next question that I was going to ask. You know, when we're talking about the story of us, how does that connect to the story of identity? Because we do have a colonial identity, we have a cultural identity, we have a geographic identity as how we define ourselves. How do you see the deliberate use of the term, the story of us, in shaping our identity?
Well, if you look at the term us, all of us are in this room. Well, we are all, despite whatever your DNA may be, we're all Bermudians. This is a story about us. Let's be frank. I'm a very dark-skinned man, but I have an English name, right? I have to accept that that's part of the story of us as well. The story of us is that black people have English names. But we also have to accept that the whole of Bermuda comes from somewhere. Some come from England, some come from the Azores, some came from America. But the vast majority of us, black and white, came from the Caribbean. And some came before emancipation. They came here unwillingly, and some came post-emancipation willingly. That's part of the story of us. When the folks migrated from England here in the 60s and the 50s, that's part of the story of us, right? But we've been only told one part of that story for too long. We have to, irrespective of CARICOM, we have to tell the full story of who we are as Bermudians, black, white, Portuguese, mixed, whoever. So that's the story of us.
Thank you. I want to move to Mr. Parent-Chief. Again, the story of us. When you hear that expression, and we're talking about identity and our position, Bermuda's position as an identity, a colonial identity, how does that fit within to the conversation of CARICOM for you?
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. That's the pains of being the last in line. However, because Chris answered much of my question, but I'm going to segue into it nevertheless. I believe the story of us includes, of course, black people and our diaspora. I'm an ardent and unapologetic Pan-Africanist. Wherever our people are, and wherever black people are, I will be trying my utmost to make their lot better than it is. But the story of us includes all of us here in this room and in Bermuda. However, it's the evolution of black people, politically, economically, commercially, internationally. And for me, traveling around the world as I have, and mostly Africa and parts of the Caribbean, I'm still getting through other parts, I see an evolution as well of all of those people who, as Chris said, include all of us. But I've been around more than 70, and I understand very, very sharply the pangs that I felt when my ancestors from St. Kitts, Phillips Village, I'm told, were referred to as jiggerfoots or jump-ups and what have you. Very derogatory language. And I'm forthright. I speak forthright. I speak blankly and bluntly. That was a design to divide and conquer, to keep us where we were, isolated, and actually cut off. Bermuda is not another world. It's a good world, but it's not another world. And in my view, from what I have over those many years observed, both in Africa, the Caribbean, and now Bermuda, is the evolution of black people into spheres of influence that they never occupied before. And certainly, there's going to be some uncomfortable. Some people are going to feel uncomfortable about that. But that's okay. You work through it. Because I think that all of us have to mature politically. And the issue of CARICOM presents an opportunity to do just that. Because, so our story is always, always evolving. But the story of other races in this country, we often hear white, Portuguese. Well, again, even that distinction. Portuguese are basically white. But those connotations and divisions have been in our society for a long time. So for me, this is a unity, a renaissance. It's going back to come forward, and for all of us to understand our backgrounds, particularly black people's journey from slavery and division and oppression to now moving through with forgiveness, actually, because we all want to mature and move forward. And CARICOM for me is the first step, because there is no secret about it. I'm also an ardent believer in sovereignty and independence. And I'll always be that way. Because for me, and I speak only for me, that is the epitome of freedom. To be able to chart your own destiny. Because we never ask, you know. We never ask what organizations the UK joined. We never questioned that. And they're 4,000 miles away. Because I heard a comment on the news last night, actually, and it was that Bahamas was 750 miles to the south of us. Well, the UK is over 4,000 miles to the north of us. So this togetherness, we talk very briefly and very quickly about geographics, because Chris raised that. Cuba, Dominican Republic are in the Caribbean, but their culture brands them as Latin American. Guyana is physically and geographically in South America, but it's thought to be West Indian. So the question of what a country is may be determined by the culture and the history of the majority of the population. But these are the myths that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parent Chief. You raised a number of different points that I want to just jump into, and I have to stay on script, but I do want to raise one small piece from what you've said. You know, we're talking about moving from the way our identity was formed, and Chris, you talked about that briefly. Just by a show of hands, how many of you have ever heard the term jiggerfoots or jump ups? Just take a look around. Yeah? How many of you have ever used the term jiggerfoot or jump ups to describe somebody? Yeah? It's an honest conversation. Yeah? So this is what we talk about when we have our, and you've been called one. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So when we look at identity, I think one of the pieces that we have to consider is that identity isn't fixed. You know, identity is evolving, and Bermuda has never been a static place. We are full of movement, we are full of transition, and a lot of that movement has been shaped by people arriving, helping to build, contributing to our country, and leaving their mark on our island ways, both seen and unseen. So I want to jump back to you, Minister. With the concept of CARICOM, how does our identity as Bermuda today and our culture and our communities shape everyday lives when we're looking at CARICOM in this discussion?
For sure, and I was listening with intention, and also, even in learning throughout this journey, I think that this is the story of us defines and acknowledges a shared history and a common journey. It also acknowledges that as we navigate similar challenges in the future, there is an opportunity to align ourselves with others who have similar challenges. And so the story of us says we acknowledge that these are those who are connected to us historically, but those who also have an opportunity to impart wisdom to us and us to them. There are economies that have evolved more successfully than ours in the areas of agriculture, in the areas of food supply and security, and we have an opportunity to grow and learn from that. We know that we, in our context in Bermuda, have successfully navigated international business and to an extent tourism as well. And so these are ways that they too can learn from us. So it is an opportunity for us, but for this forum, to be able to speak on behalf of Bermuda and its interests with people who understand and share common challenges that we have. And so it's less about, the narratives that seek to define and create a competitive environment, but rather leveraging those strengths that we have and the new strengths that they have, and to be able to navigate them successfully together. I think about the fact that they were, to some of the points that were raised already, instrumental in even our historical beginnings, from building in Royal Naval Dockyard, or us being contributing to the sloop and giving that as part of the salt trade to the Turks and Caicos Islands and other islands. We have always been a part of the Caribbean trade, and so why would it be different? And what has caused the division that now has us believing that we are so different from them, and we are so instrumental, and they too have been instrumental in our context, but that becomes eroded through time. And so it celebrates that acknowledgement, the fact that the things that we laud and leverage today is because of Caribbean influence, and likewise, it is an opportunity to lean into that in the future to be able to share and also navigate these challenges successfully, from energy to food security to even just geopolitical environments. We see that happening rapidly on a world scale. And so just as we were a part of the recent heads of government meeting where we were excluded from discussions with one of our major U.S. trading partners. And so the question becomes, if Bermuda is such a strong partner of these organizations and countries, why wouldn't we be able to advocate for the things that are best for us? Why wouldn't we be able to have a place where our interests can also be heard and not relegated to just a listening space or an observer stance? Because we do have a progressive economy, which we are proud of. We do have a strong international standing, which we too are proud of. But does that also enable us to speak for ourselves? And that is really the critical difference between where we are in associate membership and what we're seeking to have by way of full membership.
Thank you, Minister. I want to touch on something really quickly that Mr. Parent-Chief, you talked about identity and things that have shaped our identity. And Mr. Famous, you talked about the myths. One of the pieces that came up in your conversation just now for me was the way much of Bermuda historically has been taught that we are the jewel of the British Empire and that we are better than the rest of the Caribbean. That has been deeply ingrained within our cultural narrative. How would you say today migration and cultural connections with the Caribbean, as deeply embedded as they are in the Bermuda that we know today, what would you say to, those myths and those narratives that we've been taught as it relates to our understanding of identity in this discussion of CARICOM?
Well, one of the things about colonialism, in order for colonial powers to be successful, they had to deal with divide and conquer. The same story they tell Bermuda about what the best of their colonies, they've told every one of the islands historically. So there's been this historic division amongst islands that, oh, Jamaica's better than Trinidad, or Trinidadians feel they're better than Barbadians. Barbadians feel they're better than everybody. Because the British, in their infinite wisdom, knew how to divide and conquer us. They gave Bajans secondary school education, tertiary school education. They sent them out amongst the other colonists to say, you go out and you administer for us, right? So I take that back to say that the same brainwashing that they did on those islands, they did on Bermuda, to say, you know, you're better than those people down south. You don't have anything to do with those people. Meanwhile, they're constantly importing people from down south, right? Remember, historically speaking, from Cyril Packwood, Dr. Cyril Packwood, the majority of enslaved Bermudians, persons who came here enslaved, didn't come from Africa. They came from the Caribbean. No one's going to sail 2 months to Africa when they could sail 1 week to the Caribbean and collect people who already speak English. So I say that in the context where we are now is that it's ingrained in us as Bermudians of all colors that we're better than them. There's people down there. And when you actually travel there, you will see that there are people my complexion earning hotels. There are people my complexion earning rental car agencies. There are people my complexion earning acres of land. So how are we better than them? How? There's no tangible evidence, right? I've been to some countries where the roads are, I'm gonna go left, the roads are better than ours, right? But the point I'm saying is that we have been fed this concept that we are better than other countries, and other countries have been fed the concept that they are better than others. They look at, oh, Bermuda, that little small island. So it goes back to the myths that as a country, whether we are seeking CARICOM or not, we have to tell the truth about what's happening. And once you tell the truth and people see for themselves, the conversation about CARICOM and other Caribbean organizations become easier. We have to deal with the overt problem, is the truth.
Mr. Parent-Chief? You want to speak to that as well?
A comment. Basically, I think I covered much of it, but I'm ready for the next question.
Ready for the next question. Okay, we're going to keep moving. We talked about, I want to shift just a slight bit. We talked about identity. We talked about where these sort of narratives of identity have come from. But I want to shift to where we're going and how does Bermuda fit within the story of CARICOM. So when we start from that position, can the panel, all of you, share with us what is Bermuda's current relationship with CARICOM, so we all have a better understanding of what does that look like today? What is Bermuda's relationship today, and what are we able to do as associate members?
So as an associate member, we are invited to the notable heads of government meetings, which we are able to attend. They do acknowledge that we are invited and participate in CARICOM communication. The key area and areas that we are seeking to evolve is around, one, having voting rights as it relates to noteworthy and areas that often and most often impact Bermuda. It is around also participating and having an opportunity to attend the various forums with other governments and take advantage of the investment opportunities that also exist through CARICOM membership. There are oftentimes discussions with those who are our trade partners and who we have strong relationships with. But again, I gave the example of us attending the heads of government more recently in July. The same is true when we went to the Afro-CARICOM Summit, which was in Ethiopia, where likewise we were not able to have the relative standing and or consideration in the core discussions and topics that came up, of which all directly impact us here at home. And so it is around that advocacy piece, but for an opportunity to advocate for our interests in CARICOM, the question that I often ask is, if not here, then where? where are we often able to speak for ourselves and ensure that what is important to Bermuda is considered. I think about the recent Sargasso Sea delegation and how even they had to, through their advocacy, as Bermuda is the only landmass in the Indian Sargasso Sea landscape, we're the only landmass, but yet we have to go through other facilitators, through, I think, UK Greenpeace, in support of our interests. And so I think that because we have matured and evolved, evidence of that would be around how we best advocate for those same interests around the CARICOM tables. The opportunity for our youth to do trade programs and educational opportunities. The University of the West Indies is one of which we have not taken true advantage of, but that even evolves further. They have trade opportunities, diversification by way of even for public sector trade opportunities for them to come and support infrastructure and areas in which in our service we can strengthen based on their expertise. We do have some public officers now who have come from the Caribbean, but there are initiatives specifically focused on capacity building, and we stand to benefit from that.
So there are actually significant benefits that we already have, but there are huge gaps as well. So, Mr. Parent Chief, can you speak to some of your understanding of where we are now and where those gaps and limits create problems for Bermuda or challenges?
The gaps actually go all the way back to 1967, 68, because under the Bermuda Constitution Act 1967, under which our Bermuda Constitutional Order operates, doesn't allow, under Section 62 of our Constitution, for us to evolve past domestic. That is to say, that Section 62 of the Bermuda Constitution says that it is the exclusive preserve of the UK for external matters, defense, internal security, and the like. And I heard the minister say, or speak briefly to the issue of maritime issues, Sargasso Sea, et cetera, anything to deal with external affairs, be it shipping, aviation, space communications, one will have to go through the UK, the FCDO, Department, the Governor, and what have you, because those areas are reserved unto the UK. So when I made the comment earlier about evolving politically in a wider context and being able to get a real seat at the table, my experiences as former Attorney General were harrowing to the point whereby if there were any matters, external matters, that impacted Bermuda very directly, one had to go through a UK civil servant in order to put your questions to the floor of the plenary in order to get your voice heard. That lasted twice with me. Third time, I pulled my chair up to the table. And I told the UK representative that I will be advancing Bermuda's interests. So sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, but within that crucible, us evolving as a people who can speak for themselves and not through a muted voice of the UK speaks to sovereignty. So the gaps that we have will continue that way, unless and until we are able to do two things. I'll speak of it gradually and quickly. Unless we can get the entrustments, i.e. letters of permission, for us to work within the boundaries that the UK say we could work on matters of external relations, we would have to have them allow us a constitutional change to Section 62 of the Constitution in order to give us more flexibility. And in the context of CARICOM, if I can think of a matter, let's call it defense. If we wanted to in any way join a regional force within CARICOM to effect security or even defense of any particular country, be it even a Caribbean country, then the UK would have to say to what extent we could participate in that, so that you're at the table. I'm putting it very simply, but if you're at the table and that topic comes up, we have, our representatives have to pause and see whether or not the entrustment that they have, the permission they have from the UK, allows them to participate in that particular conversation. So it is what it is, because we are an overseas territory. And unless and until we change that, we are going to be shaped as a people, an embarrassing situation for me, quite frankly. My friends from Africa and the Caribbean say to me, "What, you're still a colony?" But yes, but I commend the minister, this government, and all the team who are working towards moving us beyond the confines of Section 62 of our Constitution. And that is the last provision in our Constitution that caps just how far we can blossom into fully exploring our maritime territory, actually. And I'll finish here on that particular one, because the question of maritime zones, the example of the continental shelf that the UK are aware of for Bermuda, that doesn't mean a geographical one. But if we did have one, it would push our maritime zone out to about another 150 miles beyond our economic zone. So there's a lot to be said for where we need to evolve, but that's an explanation for the gaps and just how far we can go.
Okay, that's quite a bit. That's a lot to unpack right there. And I do want to jump to MP Famous for a second around widening the lens. So we've talked about maritime, we've talked about having a seat at the table with the minister. From your perspective, Bermuda sits, we're in the middle of the Atlantic, we're isolated, but we don't exist in isolation. How do you see CARICOM being able to help address the challenges that places like Bermuda and small island nations have to face? How do we work together?
If you all could take your minds back to the end of October 2025, anybody remembers what happens? We had a hurricane, Hurricane Melissa. That same hurricane, 10 days prior, struck Jamaica, it struck Cuba, it struck parts of Haiti, struck parts of Bahamas, struck parts of Turks and Caicos, and then we were the last stop. So the hurricanes see no boundaries when it comes to countries. We have a thing called climate change that somebody in America denies, that affects all of us. All of our insurance rates are going to go up. All of our construction rates are going to go up. Some people are not going to have electricity for a few days because of climate change. As CARICOM, one of the first things that happens is when a hurricane strikes any given territory, CARICOM mobilizes, CARILAC, it mobilizes security forces to assist. if you all could remember back also to January 2025, someone in America decided that they're going to put tax on shipping. Any ship that is built by China is going to get taxed $1 million, $1.5 million per voyage. Bermuda was subjected to that because two of our ships are built in China. CARICOM, through the Private Sector Association of CARICOM, lobbied the U.S., and that was repealed. So I say that to say that there are things that the public will see that CARICOM, our association with CARICOM, assists, and there are things behind the scenes that assist. So we cannot sit there, on one hand, we say, oh, well, we're international jurisdiction, but then when it comes to business, but then when we talk about joining regional organizations, no, you can't do that. So that's a sort of hypocrisy that we are mature as a people, that we have to move beyond this fear-mongering, move beyond the myths, and say, not every organization not everything in every organization is for us. We pick out what we need and what is applicable to us that works for us.
I want to take that word, fear-mongering, for a second. And I just want to do a recap of this first section before we move on to the next section. There have been a number of key words, expressions that have come up consistently through this whole first part of the panel, your panel discussion. I want to look at Section 62. We have an evolving political identity. We have sovereignty, myths, fear-mongering, defense, being able to be at the table. Can one of you speak to what does it take to move past where we are today, the Bermuda today, and the dynamics and cultural history that shape those very terms that I've just mentioned? I know it's a lot going on with that.
It's definitely a loaded question, but I think this, in short, is around acceptance, and then that allows us to move to the opportunity. So we accept it for the truth of it as our history, the truth of it being our current state, but the opportunities are limitless. It is as extensive or as limited as we wish it to be, which is true similarly in the CARICOM context insofar as there is a Treaty of Chaguaramas of which every other sovereign state would sign up, and there are provisions included in it. But for Bermuda, we have said, listen, based on our constitutional status and based on our letter of entrustment, these are the things that we cannot do. We cannot sign up to free movement of persons. However, we can do advertisement and seek to attract English-speaking Caribbean individuals who are right for these roles to be able to apply for the needs in our Bermuda context. And so likewise, it doesn't necessarily define the limits of the future, but it actually creates and unlocks what is possible for Bermuda to take advantage of, for Bermuda to be a part of. And so I think, when we think about the things that, in the context have been restrictors and agents of suppression, if you will, it actually is an invitation to consider the possibilities and how we might evolve together and evolve even the way that we see ourselves through acknowledgement of our history, but then through an invitation to reimagine what the future of Bermuda and Bermudians can be.
Mr. Parent-Chief, Section 62 and sovereignty.
I touched most of it, so I'll be brief. Yes, the minister just outlined just how far we can go, quote, with full membership. I credited the minister and government and her team with an excellent booklet, green paper, which really outlines as well the limitations in respect of our protections for the immigration of our country. And I think it's a very intelligent and measured approach to protecting Bermudians. However, with Section 62, and as I said, you heard enough of the details of it, but Section 62 actually, if removed, and this is as far back as 1968, when the Westminster Parliament debated the Bermuda Constitution Act 1967, they explicitly said that basically, but for Section 62, which protects the UK, in fact, it protects them from Bermuda violating international conventions. And we have the august likes of politicians in the audience as well as on the stage. They will remember the cannabis bill, whereby the governor at the time would not and could not give assent to that particular bill. Section 62 was well in play. So for me, it's you may play in your playpen in the confines of domestic Bermuda, but the minute you venture outside of those confines, please come to Mother UK to ask permission as to how far you can wander outside of your Bermuda playpen. I won't get into whether or not that's democratic or not. I think you can all work through it yourselves. But the Bermuda Constitutional Order is that just that, an order in council. And order in council is usually the legal counsel of His Majesty now. But in any event, it is a schedule to our Constitution, schedule to Bermuda Constitution. So we have a bit of a way to go. It depends on us, all of us here, as to how far we want to evolve, because as MP Famous said, I have traveled fairly extensively, but as I come up through the Caribbean and look and see the evolution of people in St. Kitts, people in Barbados, what have you, as they move through their constitutional arrangements, republic in the case of Barbados, representation direct and speaking for themselves at the United Nations. This is powerful growth. I will say very briefly that in my private capacity, I also am a trained diplomat, and I've been able to actually work without disclosing client attorney privilege, but I've been instrumental to an extent in giving certain advices to other diplomats who go to the United Nations, OECD, and the like. And they do that freely in the independent CARICOM countries. And they progress, make the mistakes, grow, and move forward as a free and political people. The identity and the experiences that I've had, I've learned much from my interaction and interplay with mostly my Caribbean neighbors, friends, and relatives. I became a St. Kitts and Nevis citizen just last year, and I intend to explore that as much as I possibly can. And I can say this because it's Bermuda. I'm not the poster boy for the CARICOM, but I am a strong advocate for it, and I will remain that way. And I'm not in the employ of, this is my personal journey, and I will continue it because it does evolve me. It allows me to see and to come into contact with powerful minds of the like of C.L.R. James, Walter Rodney, and what have you, the powerful people who come out of the University of West Indies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's subjective to a point, but when you look at it in the round, in its fullest. It is collective, and it's up to everyone to grasp that. I say, and I leave this topic on this point, that I believe that we have to somehow, in our best efforts, surmount collective xenophobia, our social xenophobia, and just break out and embrace all of our organizations and contacts, be they the CARICOM or any other relationships from Europe or whatever, because we never questioned those. There was a Brexit. I don't know. UK, we all seem to have joined Europe at one point, but then there was a vote, and we are no longer a part of Europe. I never heard an outcry, one way or the other. But it just seems that when black people join other organizations that are apparently or seemingly black organizations, then there's this pushback. I feel, not necessarily from this room, but just when there's about joining or expanding our freedoms, there's this, as I said, I've been here more than 3 schools, but the resistance that we feel when we talk about sovereignty and independence is of the same genre that we get around this topic of CARICOM. So I say, be brave, muscle up, and mentally and physically, and traverse towards grasping any kind of relationships, any kind of agreements that resonate with us, not the Ben Judas who want to make us a kingdom. He was here and got lots of press in the Royal Gazette. I would oppose that, because I oppose kingdoms. But in any event, if we have healthy and helpful organizations, I think it's best that we explore them as we are this evening before we say yes or no, quite frankly, because I'm not here to really persuade anyone, just to share my experiences of my journey and my evolution towards embracing the Caribbean, and indeed I mentioned Pan-Africa, and any African country that is attempting to evolve, but any other country. But I just feel kinship with Africa and the Caribbean.
Thank you, Mr. Parent-Chief. Thank you for that. I want to move from where we've come from. We've just talked about that extensively, and we've talked about where we currently stand as our connection with CARICOM. Let's look more directly at what the future looks like, okay? So when we talk about CARICOM and our connection with Bermuda, let's not discuss it from a theoretical perspective, but for everyone that's here and watching at home and the wider community, what does that look like in practical terms? For us to become full members of CARICOM, how does that shape everyday life for Bermudians? Minister and then MP Famous?
Sure, thank you. I often refer to a definition around economics because that's often something that comes up. And the definition that we have earned, especially in exploring this topic, is around how do we define our well-being? And so it talks about it being the discipline of deliberate choice about well-being. And so if I think about a country's well-being and its people, I refer to the Q4 Omnibus survey that we did. And before I continue, I want to acknowledge my colleague, Minister Weeks, who is here with his wife, as well as Senator Fubler, who's also here, and members of the opposition who are also represented here this evening, as well as MP Ming, who I see at the back as well. And although she said not to call, I do want to acknowledge the U.S. Consul General, who's also in our midst this evening. And Colonel Birch, of course, our former Public Works Minister, we do honor him, and he was actually in, or a part of, and present in the 2003 signing of the associate membership. So I do acknowledge all of my colleagues and former Attorney General Michael Scott as well. So thank you for being here. But in acknowledging what is best for us and our well-being, I refer to the Q4 Omnibus Survey, which is what we did in advance of the town halls, in advance of the green paper. We said before we even begin to educate or seek to encourage persons to fully understand what the CARICOM and CARICOM membership is about, what is it that Bermudians feel would be best for them as it relates to deepening our ties with CARICOM. And the Q4 Omnibus Survey shows that 77% said food security, 75% talked about climate resilience, 74 said energy resilience, 73 said health and safety, and 72 said education and training. And so when I'm invited to answer a question around what does the future look like, it begins with those areas. It begins with the areas that the public has told us even before knowing about the areas of which they have already constructed the trade opportunities, the trade agreements by way of food security, the opportunity to even learn about their agricultural strategy. They have a 20 by 25 strategy, which is evolving now, but that was around deliberate action to strengthen your food supply and food security. We know that we import 90% of what we consume. And so in as much as progressive reinsurance business and sectors are for our economy, for our people and their survival, our ability to be able to consider how we also consume and can evolve our food security through domestic production is equally important. And so food security, even educational opportunities, all of the areas, climate resilience that is discussed are areas where we can begin to deepen specific engagement on behalf of not only what the people have shared with us that they'd like to see, but also what is also on display and also facilitated through the CARICOM Secretariat and its organs.
Thank you, Minister. MP Famous.
Repeat the
So
question.
moving from the theoretical concept of CARICOM, how does everyday Bermudians view or how are we impacted by full membership of CARICOM in practical terms?
Well, full membership, initially, in my opinion, I didn't take part of the survey. In my opinion, full membership helps us collectively to initially have a degree of political maturity versus being told to stay in the sandbox because you don't want to be part of the big conversation. So in part of political maturity, it means that when there are topics that come up that affect the region, Bermuda has a say. Bermuda has a voice in the room. I'll give you an example. A few months ago, we were in St. Kitts, and the Secretary of State of the United States, Marco Rubio, came there and had a meeting with the full members in regards to things that affect the entire region. Bermuda and the other overseas territories, Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, we had to sit outside like school kids, right? So right now there's a PLP government. One day there may be an OBA government. You think they want to sit in the back like school kids? So what we're doing for them now can set the stage for them. So I say to Bermudians, there was a time when I was born, my father couldn't vote because at the time there was not universal adult suffrage. You go back further, there was a time that women couldn't vote. And there was always a reason why we can't allow that, because that would upset the apple cart and that would cause disruption and So I say that was political immaturity coupled with racism and sexism. So I'm saying to us all here that we all have to stand up as Bermudians and know that we are politically mature enough to speak for ourselves in a room versus having some university graduate who's on secondment to the FCDU speak for us. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Famous. I want to touch on something for a second. You mentioned the term political maturity, and then it goes back to what Mr. Parent-Chief was talking about when we were talking about political identity and being able to move and shift from where we currently are into a new space in order to make new decisions. So when we talk about identity, so political identity, cultural identity, economic identity, how do we look at Bermuda, how do we look at us transitioning once we are a part of CARICOM? You know, does that conversation take us closer to sovereignty, independence conversations? Like, what does that look like for us?
I personally don't. I think sometimes we have to not conflate things, right? In the sense to say that being a full member of CARICOM is not going to, the sky is not suddenly going to be pink, right? The reality is that each member state of CARICOM, Jamaica has its identity, Trinidad has its identity, and there's this fear-mongering that if you become a full member, we're going to be inundated with those people who can come here and take our jobs, and so on and so forth. When it comes to independence or sovereignty, whatever term you want to use, that's a whole nother conversation. Being part of CARICOM as a full member is not an opening door to that. But what it does tell people is that you can stand up for yourself. So I personally would not conflate the two. No disrespect to my fellow Barclayite, good house, but I wouldn't conflate the two, because there are going to be persons who can leave her saying, they want to use CARICOM to get towards independence, and that's not the goal. That's not the purpose of having this forum. It's to inform people about who we are as a people, where we are as part of the Caribbean narrative. Belize is way over in the western part, but they're part of the Caribbean. Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, geographically are not Caribbean, but culturally they are. So I say that the Bermuda, we are the most northern island in the Atlantic, right? But Bahamas and Turks and Caicos are not geographically in the Caribbean, but culturally we are, right? So, thank you.
So I want to expand that just a little bit further, and maybe Mr. Parent-Chief, you can speak to this for me. When we're looking at international relationships and geopolitical risk, that has been raised as serious concerns for some Bermudians. How do you see our relationship with United States, United Kingdom, working together as a part of our identity under the CARICOM umbrella?
Well, sorry. It goes back to Section 62. I say that because we, as far as geopolitical risks are concerned, UK is as well from the US, if you understand. We understand and appreciate where Trumpism is going today. But as far as any geopolitical risks, Bermuda is like many small island developing states, SIDS. We are the recipients, whether or not, we're not participants at all. UK will take the lead. This geopolitical is outside of Bermuda. It is in the bailiwick of Section 62 of our Constitution. Because we said, what would our relationship be with the UK? Well, if the UK decides to take a more prominent role in the war that's going on between Iran, US, and Israel, some of our regiment may end up having to head that way if the bases keep being bombed in Cyprus and other UK territories. So we may ask ourselves, are we under geopolitical risk now? With the UK's involvement, surreptitiously or otherwise. So geopolitical risks, of course, are not exacerbated by our relationship with CARICOM. As I said, under Section 62 of the Constitution, external affairs, defense, security, internally, police, are under the bailiwick of the UK. our relationship with the United States, I think we have to define that. Our relationship, and I read what my good friend Bob Richards had to say. I disagree with it, but here we are. The relationship of the U.S. today, that administration, is unfortunately is being driven by what Mr. Trump wishes to do with the Monroe Doctrine as far as the Caribbean is concerned. And he imposed his will on Trinidad in order to do what he thought he had to do in Venezuela. So I don't think that, for instance, if Bermuda, as a UK overseas territory, is aggressed by the United States, I would imagine, to the extent it can, that the UK would intervene or attempt to intervene on our behalf as we registered our concerns. But I don't think that and in fact, I strongly feel that there would be no negative effect or any greater negative effect by us joining with the full CARICOM. We have within that august organization many Caribbean countries, and any geopolitical hemispheric risk will be under whatever the U.S. under Mr. Trump. Because I dare say that this is probably the first time in U.S. history that the relationship with the Caribbean has been so tense under this administration. Mr. Obama, Mr. Biden, and every other president of the United States, there was not this kind of geopolitical risk. And I believe that it is a function of Mr. Trump's view of the world. So I feel strongly that this government and the opposition of this country would come together and be able to present a strong position, notwithstanding any relationship with with CARICOM or any other organization. We were actually also have a partial relationship, or had one, with the European Union. But I didn't hear any hue and cry, as I said earlier, when we now have a slightly altered relationship with the European Union. But then Europe we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Parent-Chief. I want to look a little bit more at fear and risk and a lack of understanding that has been expressed by some members of the community during this period of consultation. So some of the concerns that have been raised, I'll just read off a few of them. One of the first concerns that have sort of come up when we look at CARICOM membership, does it mean that nationals from other member states can come to Bermuda and take Bermudian jobs? Can you, Minister, want to start that off for us? There are issues around immigration within the Green Paper, and it's very clear on where Bermuda stands, but for a point of clarity for those who do not understand what that looks like for Bermuda, can you just speak to immigration issues and job security in that context?
Absolutely. And I wanted to just actually circle back really briefly to Mr. Parent-Chief's final contribution, to the extent that it's important to note that the current entrustment in which we are beginning our engagement to deepen ties with CARICOM began in 2016. So the former administration actually initiated the renewed entrustment in order for Bermuda to deepen its ties with CARICOM. That's an entrustment that we, as the PLP administration, have sought to evolve and deepen thereafter. So that's one thing. And two, also along the ties of kind of the U.S. as well as CARICOM. Yes, there are current events that are notable, but notwithstanding that, the fact that they sent the Secretary of State to a CARICOM meeting, which is the first in recent history, to me signals that it's important for them to not just speak to certain members that they could have ordinarily spoken to, not outside of the CARICOM forum, but rather they sought it important to come and meet with the entire CARICOM member states. Additionally, the U.S. has put out a position piece or a piece of understanding which also talks about the U.S. CARICOM relations, and I believe it was published in 2024. And in that document, it goes on to outline the value that the U.S. has for CARICOM, its import-export relationship, and the fact that it sought to strengthen and evolve that relationship further. So I do believe that, notwithstanding current events, which can sometimes be a distraction, there is an understanding of the needs to strengthen and build these relationships across, let's call it traditional lines, to be able to build and create these relationships for the future. You spoke about some of the myths and the beliefs relating to Bermuda and our, because of our size, the ability to have foreign nationals working in Bermuda. We currently do have foreign nationals, and we have an immigration policy, and that's the policy that we wish to maintain. The only difference in this context is that we would seek to engage English-speaking Caribbeans who may be suited for roles that we have deemed eligible and available for them to apply. And we know most recently there have been English proficiency questions, and so this again invites an opportunity to go to a pool of persons who not only have a aligned culture and history, but also would be able to meet that English proficiency and be able to meet the criteria for the roles. There isn't an open border approach, and the CSME framework, if I may just also clarify, speaks only to the opportunity for there to be visa-free travel. It's seeking for there to be free movement of skilled workers. So it's always sought to evolve the movement of persons who had particular skills. It's not just open borders, but it's a free movement of skilled persons, skilled labor, which is similar to what we have in the Bermuda context that says we would like for those who are skilled enough to apply for our roles to be able to work and have residency by way of a work permit in Bermuda's context.
MP Famous or Mr. Parentief, do either of you want to speak to that?
Well, again, it goes back to the fear-mongering, right? We have a subset of Bermuda that a few years ago were advocating that we increase the amount of people in the island for various different reasons, and that we shouldn't be so xenophobic, blah blah blah, right? But the minute CARICOM, the conversation about becoming full members, that's some of the same folks start the fear-mongering that, oh, if they become full members, you know what this is going to do to the immigration? That's going to just open the floodgates that those people, and you keep those words, those people are going to come here and work and take our jobs. That's the same fear-mongering that led to Brexit, right? That those people from Europe, Eastern Europe, are coming and taking our jobs. And we see where the UK is now. The point I'm getting at is that we have every Caribbean island, country, because they're not all islands, has their own immigration policies. I, as a skilled plant technician, cannot go to Jamaica and work without a work permit. I cannot go to, no one here can go to any other country unless they're a citizen and just work without a work permit. Every country has their immigration policies set up to protect initially their citizens and then their economy. When we walk around Bermuda, we see many persons that we know are not Bermudians, but they're not from the Caribbean, but no one's complaining about that. So how now, when people are making up stories to say, well, the PLP is just doing this so they could get more Caribbean people in here to vote for them, that is so far-fetched, right? I am the chair of the Bermuda Housing Corporation, and currently, as we all know, we don't have enough housings for Bermudians. Let us open the floodgates and see what problem we're going to have then. That is not happening. And so I say this categorically, that those persons that were advocating for open borders a few years ago, now suddenly don't want, now suddenly are fear-mongering. They are part of the problem. They are part of what is causing this fear of us moving forward in political maturity. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Famous. I have one more concern that has been raised before we open up the floor for general questions. We look at Bermuda's economy, and some have said that make this make sense. We've heard the phrase chalk and cheese. Let's address that head on as far as Bermuda's economic distinctiveness. Could that be a barrier, or could it be an asset for us to be full members of CARICOM? Mr. Parenti, if you want to start with that one.
Yeah, I'd take a shot at it. Basically, I don't see a great difference if I was to take, well, if I was to look at Cayman Islands very closely as a model very close to us. We have its economy being generated by tourism and international business. And if it was so, I mean, if we took away from Bermuda its international business, then I don't know how different we would be from the rest of the Caribbean. We operate on a two-horse economy, international business and tourism. So, and if we were to build the same in other countries in exchange, I don't know if I would want other countries, or they would want to build, at least to the extent we have, with international business. So it's again what I heard from MP Famous, that we're better than you. You know, we have hundreds of international companies, et cetera, et cetera. We now have a global minimum 15% tax and all of that, and we derive our income. Well, fine. But we don't have the agricultural diversity of the countries to the south in the Caribbean. So I would think that we, and this is just an idea, but for those countries, agrarian or agricultural, or even to some extent, the bauxite, as it is in Jamaica or wherever, the oil and the gas that we have in Guyana, if all of that came together and we diversified our economy and, in fact, put into place what islands within that CARICOM grouping or community does what best, because we have brilliant minds in this room, in this country, in CARICOM, to come together. We're some very strong economists and statisticians. I've met them. And we could see where economies of scale can be gained within that entire CARICOM and let those islands do what they do best. So doing best is with Bermuda doing what it's doing today, and other countries to the south of us doing what they do best, agriculture and whatever, even industrial. Then that coming together is stronger. But I don't see any difference. Chalk, cheese is really, I think, over the top, because but for the international business sector operating, whether it should or not is another question, but it's not a great deal that one day they may wish to go that way, and chalk, the cheese changes because we'd either both become chalk or both become cheese. It's only a two-horse economy here in Bermuda. We have no agrarian spaces that to speak of if we're talking about exports, etc., and trade. So I just believe that comments like that are, in fact, I know it's unhelpful and xenophobic, and really quite politically immature. I really do think we have to expand our minds, expand our talents, and join our talents, actually, and move beyond where we are today. And I can see that evolution. Not a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Parent-Chief. Speaking of moving, we are going to move right into this last phase of the discussion this evening. Many of you have submitted questions and comments through our QR code. Thank you for that. We're going to try and tackle as many as possible within the time that we're given, but we want you to know that all questions and comments will be recorded and be included in our FAQs at a later date. So the first question, the panel has actually spoken to this, but I'm going to combine two of these questions and then you can speak to this. The discussions have focused heavily on emotional and historical context, with gains being more aspirational or conceptual. What is the biggest tangible uplift that can be specifically identified and realized with a seat at the table? And I'm going to merge that with, for someone that's needing more convincing that Bermuda should be a part, can you give us a bit more tangible reasons why? So I'm just sort of combining the two of those.
I mean, we must first acknowledge that the constant representation of emotional is connected to a core ideology that is what we are seeking to evolve from. It is not emotional. Our history is a fact, actually. And so in acknowledging the fact of our history, it may evoke an emotion, which we acknowledge, but it is also the fact of who we are. And so it is acknowledging who we are in the first instance, and then once we move beyond that, we talk about the opportunities that could exist by way of deepening our ties through CARICOM. And so the question sought to ask, about what are the opportunities, or the most important tangible opportunity, and I think it is around self-advocacy as a country, amongst and with others who are speaking of things that impact Bermuda, but Bermuda is not considered in a tangible way. And so if you are in a room where a decision is being made specifically for you, wouldn't you want to contribute to be able to say how that decision will impact you?
I'd just like to segue what the minister said. In fact, I hear it all the time. Some people believe that emotions, or if things are expressed in an emotional way, it's tantamount to being expressed in an irrational way. I think I can feel passionately about some very deep and clear things and be able to push it. That's just who we are. And it may be because of our history that we feel this way. But when people qualify, when it is qualified by some persons that you're speaking emotionally, it's almost as though you're speaking irrationally. And I do take umbrage to that. I think we speak our truths. We have contributed here as much as we can from our point of view at this very early stage. Perhaps, yes, emotionally, and perhaps emotionally it should be. Because for those of us who are evolving and evolving from quite strenuous histories, others may not understand that. But there are many of us who do. We have a lot of ground to cover. And some of us do that emotionally, but not necessarily irrationally.
Thank you. I want to jump to this next question. Minister, how will the decision be made? Will we be part of the decision process? Will Bermudians be a part of the decision process? And if they are, what does that look like?
It looks like this consultation this evening. It looks like the green paper, which will then evolve to a white paper, which will chronologue the different voices and sentiments that have been received by the ministry throughout this period. The ultimate decision actually rests between CARICOM and the UK, noting that we, just as we are unable to advocate for ourselves around the table, we cannot make the ultimate decision relating to CARICOM membership ourselves. It is a decision that through engagement with the UK and the Secretariat relating to the provisions in the current Treaty of Chagaramis, of which we cannot accede, we would invite their feedback following this period to say to what extent is membership possible. So it's important to note that though this is a desire of the current administration to deepen our ties as an extension of what was started in 2016, we do not ultimately have a decision to make ourselves. It is actually up to the UK and also the CARICOM Secretariat and its members.
Are there other UK overseas territories in our region moving toward full CARICOM membership? And if there have been, what was their process?
So they are, interestingly, have noted Bermuda's both focus and momentum, and BVI, in particular, Turks and Caicos as well, Cayman is in the room but has not yet formally disclosed its intentions. But there are other overseas territories who, like Bermuda, is seeking to deepen their ties. Bermuda is the most advanced. We've done a treaty-by-treaty analysis in terms of the provisions included in the Treaty of Chaguaramas. We've gotten several international lawyers involved to be able to best give us advice about how we might be able to actualize the spirit of the provisions in the treaty. And so they are watching and noting us and want to be able to benefit from what we are advancing. They want to deepen their ties with CARICOM because they have also acknowledged both the benefit and the opportunity.
Thank you, Minister. MP Famous, is the title "The Story of Us" accurate? Considering that the Caribbean population is predominantly Black, who does us refer to?
That's factually incorrect. The Caribbean population is predominantly white or mixed race. The Caribbean includes Cuba, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Haiti, and then the Lesser Antilles. The Lesser Antilles, starting from the Virgin Islands down to Trinidad, would be predominantly Black, yes. But when you consider the whole of the Caribbean region, when you include Guyana, Suriname, and French Guyana, is over 40 million. Most of those persons don't look like me. And so I say that in the context that this is a myth, right? Because if someone said, what does a Cuban look like? The majority of persons are going to say Gloria Estefan or something like that, right? She doesn't look like me. So when I say the story of us, this is important that we have this conversation, that we actually talk about what are the truths. Because again, if the majority of the people look like me, how is that now a negative thing? You see? Because if we had the, let's just say, if we had representation of what the Caribbean looked like on this stage right now, I guarantee people would change some of their views. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Famous. Yes, we will start. We have 2 more questions from the QR code, and then I'll open it up to the floor. What you can do, you can actually come to the mic if you have a question so that when we get to that point, you're ready to go. Mr. Parent-Chief.
Yes, we are a British territory, but us, are we in a minority in the UK in terms of how we look? So the story of us as British is a very funny picture when I visit the UK, because I feel very much a minority, but that doesn't disturb me a great deal when I do so as a Canadian citizen. I'm outnumbered, but I still feel, to a large extent, a part of that society. So, I mean, the questions can come, but no, I believe that we're talking about all of us. And it's, again, when we speak about Bermuda and Bermudians, we're speaking about the evolution and the maturity of all Bermudians, Black and the white amongst us. And unless and until we get over this psychological barrier about us, the story of us, it's the interplay between all Bermudians. I've evolved because of my interconnections with other races in Bermuda, professionally as well as even personally. Certainly, I don't want to comb through my family, but my family is quite mixed. So I don't think I've ever had a particular problem identifying who us are. And again, it may, I don't know, be that we have to think of us in Bermuda as all of us evolving. But yes, in this case, MP Famous sorted that one out. But the Caribbean is a melting pot of just about everybody, pretty much everybody in this room. But and we keep making these kind of distinctions, I don't think it's going to be helpful or profitable at all, because again, as I say, there are shades of the environment that we get when we talk about sovereignty and independence. I won't go down that road, but it's something we have to get over. We have to mature.
Thank you, Mr. Parent Chief. I'll do one more, and then we'll go straight to the members in the room. What would happen if CARICOM says no, or Britain says no? What next?
So I was going to just say, as a final kind of contribution to the story of us, it is the acceptance that we are Bermudians, and so us in Bermuda, acknowledging our history, but also us in Bermuda deciding what the future will be for us. And so us equals anyone that is in Bermuda, that is impacted by Bermuda and the Bermudian economy or experience. It is the us that together we're navigating and deciding what will be best for us together. So it actually doesn't speak to one specific us, but it is the us that is all of us that are here, represented here today at the outside of the town hall. We raised hands acknowledging that we all have Caribbean history and that there are ties to the Caribbean. And so with that acknowledgement, we can then move forward beyond the history to the opportunity for all of us, whether it be through deepened ties with CARICOM or otherwise. But I do believe that Bermuda is to a point in which it has evolved to the extent that it deserves to be able to speak for itself. And so if it is not CARICOM, then where else? And where else can our interest be heard and considered by us?
And if Britain, do you want to go any further?
The same is true in the British context. And I do want to, before I give up the mic, acknowledge my two colleagues that I didn't earlier, the Attorney General and Minister of Education, Crystal Caesar, who is also here, and Minister Raban, who I don't see, who's here. Yes, sorry. Please, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Many of you have submitted your questions through the QR code, and we are going to hold on to these questions, but we do want to welcome the first question up to the mic for this evening. And we want to remind everyone that we are going to limit it to one question per person to allow others to ask questions as well. Thank you.
I have that many questions.
Well, thank you for that. And you can.
But I'm only going to have one.
Yes, you will have one.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I was studying the different points. One of them was food security.
Sir, can I just ask you to just come closer to the mic or just tilt the mic up a little bit so everyone can hear your question?
Okay. The first thing that I was going to look at was food security. So obviously that would have to do with where things are grown and shipping, that sort of thing. When I tried to find shipping online with CARICOM, nothing came up. But the Association of Caribbean States came up. That includes all the countries around the Caribbean Sea. So that would be Central America, Colombia, the top of South America, Cuba and Hispaniola, all those places are included in the Association of Caribbean States. One of the differences between them and CARICOM is they have members and associate members, but in the Association of Caribbean States, they have, if a topic comes up that directs it, and it's similar, you can't really be in meetings if you're an associate member, but if something comes up that directly impacts on a country, the associate member has the right to be in a meeting. So why are we into CARICOM when it may be better being part of the Association of Caribbean States?
Okay, thank you. Minister, would you like to take that first?
I think any opportunity to deepen our advocacy is one that, we should seek to evolve. The Association of Caribbean States, I believe, is an observer or has affiliate status with CARICOM, but notwithstanding that, we already are associate members of CARICOM. We have relationships and are privy to the things that you won't find online. I know that you said you looked online. You may not find these discussions, but in the communique of the Secretariat, you will find notes to support the various, 20 by 20 forums and shipping agreements, et cetera, of which were part of the plenary and the caucus discussions. But again, being able to take part in those discussions are limited to Bermuda at this present time.
Yeah, but the thing about it is the story of us was 60-something pages long. About 20 of them talked about what the government's planning on doing, and none of the things were addressed specifically. There weren't details in things like food security. The 2025 is being done by Guyana, which is the furthest down country. It's the only country in the Caribbean that could probably grow enough food for everybody else. So that was a deal Guyana was making for themselves.
I wouldn't say that that's true, sir. I would confirm that the 20 by 25 is an initiative that CARICOM has sought to partner with the other islands. Not Guyana may have led it because that is their expertise, but just like we have other committees and origins that do different communities and committees based on their expertise, the same is true in this context. And so Guyana, having that expertise, sought to lead it on behalf of the Secretariat to teach and also evolve in the other islands. So St. Kitts is part of it. Trinidad is also part of it. Guyana, Belize as well is a part of it. And so it is not limited just to a Guyanese project, but it's actually one done in conjunction with CARICOM and the other member states as well.
Thank you for your question. And again, I noticed that I know that you said you had more questions. You can leave them with us if we don't get to your other questions. Sir?
Thank you. This is to the minister. The minister indicated that there was a letter of entrustment granted on this matter to the government of Bermuda. For the benefit of those attending today and myself, can you provide the details that are in the letter of entrustment? What does it authorize us to do, and what extent of negotiation are we able to pursue based on the letter of entrustment? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The 2016 letter of entrustment sought to deepen ties with CARICOM, seek permission, more specifically, to deepen ties with CARICOM, noting the benefit that CARICOM and its organs had for Bermuda. And so it lists and also seeks permission to broadly deepen ties with CARICOM, and it lists some health-specific programs and organizations, but it is the broad, deepened ties, deepened association, and ability to participate in those discussions that was sought from the UK back in 2016. This was also tabled in the House as well recently, but I know the public have not seen this letter. It is included in the green paper. I believe an excerpt is part of the green paper as well.
Sir?
Good day.
How are you?
Good question. Oh, that's cool. Good question. I think first I want to speak to MP Famous. How you doing today? Good.
Just move your phone from the mic. It's just
Sorry.
your phone might be.
I apologize.
Okay.
I want to say a lot of what you call, somebody says xenophobia or the fear-mongering that is going on as it relates to CARICOM. I wouldn't say it's because of CARICOM. I look around the room and I see our people. Even when the question was asked to you about the story of us, you kind of was a little afraid to say people of color, people who are indigenous to the region, which represents everybody that we see here for the most part. Bermuda, that is our history. We do have British ties and ties to Canada and all these other places. So, the fear of that we're talking about is us not being able to just say it. It's okay to say it. But the second thing that I want to say as to why Koo asked a good question, there's many letters of entrustment, as you would know, as Koo would know, as some of the members of the OBA that would have negotiated the 2016 letter. We had a 2009 letter. I think what he was getting at is that many of the benefits, I would say most of the benefits that have been spoken about here and in the Green Paper, the UK has already granted us that permission. So, for example, specifically, goods, services, agriculture-related things, technical-related things, educational-related things. The list goes on. The letters of entrustment are very valuable tools that you are currently using. And what I would say is very disappointing that we have not, as a country, used those things. So I got to my question now. You said we only got one question, so that was my little intro. It's an if question, because I see you guys don't want to partake in the CSME, which I consider to be the real value of CARICOM. And it's interesting because we don't get a vote, and you guys are doing things on our behalf, but you want to sit at the CARICOM table so you can have a vote. But I digress. If, Minister, we were to join CARICOM, and if we were to be brave enough to take part in the CSME regimes, which one would you feel would be most beneficial to Bermuda? Beautiful question for you to answer.
Thank you for your questions. I think it's important to also dispel the belief that we have not actualized and also benefited from our current engagement with CARICOM. The story of us and deepening our ties with CARICOM is also a signal and a clear compass in terms of who and which countries we seek to deepen our relationships with. There are previously defined relationships with other countries that preceded me, but I think in acknowledging and also examining the challenges that we are navigating ahead, how we might be able to build on the historical ties, historical alignments of economy and economic challenges to be able to combat them successfully together. The reality is we are not full participants of CARICOM. We are invited to attend, but we are not considered or in contemplation when decisions which impact Bermuda are being made. And so that is a critical difference between taking advantage. We cannot take advantage of something that we've not been invited to do so. And so we are in the room, we are privy to many of the organizations and initiatives that are taking place, but we are not able to say this is what would work well for Bermudians. You asked about what would I want to see evolve. What I would love to see is the ability for Bermudian businesses, which are not the existing ones that have presence in the Caribbean, to have an opportunity to have presence and trade with their Caribbean brothers and sisters. There are countries in our Bermuda context that have had no issues establishing ties in Caribbean islands. There are reinsurance companies, there are insurance companies that sought it beneficial to deepen their ties in the Caribbean, but the small Bermudian entrepreneur would be redirected to other jurisdictions, and the question becomes why? So for me, it's around how do we also benefit from what others have sought benefit for them, to be able to enable others to also benefit from that association and connectivity. And so I think that the ability to have a Bermudian product in a store in another island is something that we should aspire to, because we also have something to offer. Though limited in size, we are a richness of people. And so to be able to contribute in that way would be something that I would look forward to. We also have navigated international business well, and we have that intellectual capacity to share. I would love to see that happen and also learn from other islands who have navigated other pillars of their economy successfully. We have educational opportunities that we've benefited from, but we could also lean into many in our early days, when we were doing our interviews, Walter Lister had spoken about the fact that we brought in Caribbean teachers during the early parts of our establishment to be able to teach in our schools. So we're all the product of Caribbean influence. And so to be able to still lean into what has already worked well for us in the context of what the future relationships could look like would be something that I too would value and I think would be good for us in a way that perhaps today we don't recognize it, but tomorrow having the ability to share and pool capacity is something that is important. No country navigates things on their own. And so why should we?
So, sorry, Minister, just for clarity, which of the CSME regimes, because you mentioned a couple of things, so which one would you, if you had your way, if we did join CARICOM, which of those regimes would you say would be the most one that you would be most interested in taking part of for Bermuda, for Bermudians? Because you mentioned establishment, you also mentioned goods, which are two separate ones.
I don't speak for myself, I speak for what the government is seeking to do, but these are things in which, through our current letter of entrustment, we have the opportunity, because we cannot just sign up to the CSME, that should be known, because we cannot be a free member. So signing up to CSME is not something that really is a question that I can answer because we don't have the ability to do so. What we do have the ability to do, and which we have done, is to send to the Secretariat how we wish to positively engage in the programs and initiatives that CARICOM currently has. And so the ones that I've listed are ones in which we've presented as opportunities should the Secretariat seek to accept.
So just for clarity, are you suggesting that we do not have the ability to sign up to the CSME?
No, we don't. Based on our letter of entrustment, no.
Thank you for that questions. Mr. Parent-Chief, did you want to speak to that? No, you're holding to that one?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We have a few minutes left, so we will take a question here. And if there was another person that wanted to ask, please make your way to the microphone. We want to make sure you can form a queue to make it faster. But we will take the last 4-5 questions. So if you are ready for a question, I suggest you get in line. Okay, right here. Sorry.
Yes, good evening. Just excuse me for not being as deep as everyone else. I've spent a lot of time in prisons. I was a prison officer for years. Just coming from a different perspective. As you started, Miss, don't remember your name.
Dr. Selassie.
Dr. Selassie. You started with asking us to put up our hands, those that can relate to the certain things that you were saying. One thing you didn't ask is what age is in the room. And we're talking about the future. We're talking about the future of Bermuda. And you didn't ask what's the age in the room. And normally when you come to these sessions, you normally, if you look around the room, people my age and up are in the room. What is the plan to get the young people who are going to be affected by our decisions that we're making now in the room? I'm 60 years old, and I thought I was young, but I remember Mr. Parent-Chief as a lawyer. I was in the prison, so I remember him as a lawyer. So when we talk about us, using words like us, I don't see us up on the panel. I don't see us making decisions either. Bermuda has changed a lot, and I don't think we even recognize that. I think we don't even consider the generations that are now facing different situations now that we didn't. Mr. Parent-Chief can talk about stuff that is going to go over my children's head. I raised millennials, and their friends are Gen Zs. So when we're talking about our future, are we looking at considering how is it going to affect our young people? And if it is going to affect our young people, is this an opportunity for young people to get involved with the decision making? Because everyone in this room here, you're like preaching to the choir. Everyone could raise their hands about the things you asked about. But when you talk to Gen Zs, they have no idea. You're talking about a generation that don't even listen to the news, the politics, or anything. They have no idea what's going on in Bermuda. And the number one question they always ask, because I'm getting around, is what does it have to do with me? They're not like us. And to talk about even this and independence, how are you convincing the young people now who are now doing something what Mr. Parentship would never do, is leave this island and go to the UK that we're talking about. So we're talking about a whole different generation of mindset. And we're actually thinking we're going to make decisions off the mindsets of our generation. What was painful to us, they have no idea. They got a different pain. Mr. Parentship grew up and he did not hear gunshots every day. This generation does. We're talking about gun violence in Bermuda. Your generation never thought about even guns was a big deal. So when we're talking about how are we talking about the us, when you only got one set, and then you don't want us to think that it's just a black thing. You don't want to think that, no. And the younger people already noticing that it is a black thing. So if we're not talking, if we're not having conversations with those generations that we're going to affect, but the decisions that we make, because we've made some decisions before, like closing down schools, and then decide we're going to try to get people interested in the schools that we close down.
Thank you for your question and your comments. I will send that over to the minister as far as what is being done to address the issue of speaking to our younger demographic. But I do want to make an observation in your comment in that just because everyone in the room is of a similar age bracket, it doesn't mean we're all aligned in our position on where we stand with CARICOM. So just for clarity, not everyone in the same age group, race, or religious background, whatever, is aligned. So we do have room to address the issues of speaking to our young people, but I don't think we should just generalize because we are of the same race that we have the same mindset. Minister?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. As the youngest cabinet minister and the closest to being a millennial, and also recognizing and honoring the history and the gift that I've been given by those who actually made good decisions and have navigated things on my behalf, it would behoove me, therefore, to make decisions that would be best for the next generation. And so that's the way in which we also take on the opportunity that is CARICOM. In terms of the messaging and the ways in which we seek to diversify and engage with them, that is also part of our communications efforts, but it also imparts upon a decision and a choice between all of us who are in the room to also be the storytellers of what is included in the green paper and also encourage them to learn. Because if we don't also own it, if it is only the government's job to communicate and educate our students and our generations below, then we will be doing ourselves a disservice. We were raised by storytellers, and so we must too be storytellers of what we wish to impart upon the next generation. And so I don't take it as us as a choice and a decision and a responsibility for us alone, but also to encourage and to find an opportunity to, in different ways. I know they're on social media, TikTok and the like, and so we will venture into these spaces. We have talked to the youth parliamentarians. We have gone out to other schools to invite their feedback. However, we also would love to impart and also know that the parents have a full understanding about what it is that the government wishes to do, and to also go home and tell your children as well.
Thank you, Minister. Mrs. Horton?
Can I ask for clarification before I ask a question?
Sure.
Clarification of something that Mr. Famous said. You said that something was more white than black. Since we're here talking about CARICOM, were you saying CARICOM or the Caribbean?
No, the question, good evening, Ms. Horton. The question was the story of us. Could you repeat what the question was?
Yes, the question was if the story of us is asking about who's the us. The comment was that most of the Caribbean is black. And so the position that MP Famous was speaking to is that the Caribbean is diverse in racial background.
The Caribbean, okay. Because we're talking about CARICOM, and CARICOM is black.
I answered the question that was asked. I'm
Okay.
Barclayite.
That doesn't work all the time. Okay. I want to know if you see absolute togetherness in the members of CARICOM, and I'm talking right now about the 15 member states, because I have watched very recently as the U.S. has pulled them apart, and so I want to know what's in it for me, what's in it for us, because the U.S. has gone to, where's your Uncle Walter? St. Kitts, and St. Kitts is saying that they will take some of the persons that the U.S. is sending out. They're trying to repatriate people wherever. St. Kitts will take some, but here's the killer. They won't take Haitians. Haitians are part of CARICOM. I have a problem with that. I look at Trinidad, sick as can be, allowed them to use their land to bomb boats, and they haven't yet proven that there were drugs on those boats. It's just kill and make a decision. I look at, who else? Jamaica, forced to send doctors back. 60-year-old treaty. Where would Jamaica be without Cuban doctors? Where would Guyana be without Cuban doctors? They've all sent them back. So my thing is, I want to know, are we a together group? Or are we separate, whatever suits us?
Ms. Horton, what you're talking about is exactly why all of us are here. Not in this room, but in this part of the world. It's colonialism. It's divide and conquer. That, no disrespect to the Consulate General, but that is what the U.S. is doing in the Caribbean right now.
These are not colonial parts of the Caribbean.
No,
They have their independence.
no. There's independence. There's political independence, and then there's financial dependence. When the U.S. is telling independent countries that if you don't do this, we are not going to allow you to have visas. We are going to put your people on stop lists. That is intimidation. That's no different. The only difference between that and Iran is that it's not weapons, right? It's not death. So what I'm simply saying to all of us is that all of us, no matter your complexion, all of us are here because of a thing called colonialism. And what we have seen from the U.S. in the last few weeks, months, in the Caribbean region specifically, is neocolonialism, in which they are dividing, using economic pressure to attempt to divide up the Caribbean to fight against each other.
They haven't talked to you as a group. They've talked to separate people. So I want to know how together are we? Because, if you're going to mess with my brother, you're going to mess with me. That's the way I'm looking at it. If you're dealing with my family, you're dealing with me. And so if CARICOM is my family, then you're dealing with all of us.
Well, there are things that are not going to be seen by the public. That's all I would say.
And I would also speak to, I thank you, Ms. Horton, also for your question. And I think the recent events are, noteworthy. I know a lot of people are allowing it to be a distraction or take focus, at least, not a distraction, but it is important to note. But I think the spirit and the reason why CARICOM was founded, it cannot be ignored. Also, the unwavering spirit within the CARICOM body is around unity, notwithstanding the fact that there are individuals who have chosen, individual states who have chosen to take positions in their own benefit. That is the nature of kind of humankind. And I think also we would struggle to find a perfect organization because we are imperfect people, I also invite the organization that is perfect. And so they too are imperfect, and recent times have shown their imperfections. But I think the spirit of what they stand for as a organ of people who were created following Europe, watching Europe couple up and have their European Union being formed, they recognize that we need to too, we also must have a place where our interests are considered. And so it is that spirit that informs how they govern, how they mobilize, but it doesn't say that it precludes their individual decisions as a country either. And just as we would seek to be part of a organization, we too will have things that are best for us by way of free movement, for example. So it is not to say that, that weakens it. Each country similarly has to go home and navigate their own environments. And so not every country shows up the same way, but the spirit and the reason why CARICOM was founded was around unity. It was about pooling capacity, and it was about having a voice for decisions that impact the region in a block.
We're going to have Mr. Parent-Chief answer you as well, Ms. Horton, and then we have the two final questions for the evening.
Well, actually, I'll respond to it. Yes, you touched on it, Minister, about the organizations. I mean, even the EU and NATO are under pressure and being divided by the pressures economically and even militarily because of the Trump foreign policy at the moment, Trumpism. That is no excuse, I agree. And it's unfortunate that even small economies like St. Kitts and Trinidad and the rest of them are being put under that kind of hegemony, that kind of power, militarily and economically. But that's the nature. I won't go into much deeper, but that's how imperialism works, be it American or Western. But there's a lot of discord, even within the UK itself, about the pressures that are being brought to bear. I do commend Ireland for that's Dublin, for taking the stances it is taking, particularly with respect to Gaza. They're not caving in to the extent that other countries are. But the pressures that come economically and militarily from the present foreign policy of the United States forces small countries to buckle the way that you have very aptly demonstrated in your examples.
Thank you, Mr. Parent-Chief. We'll go over here.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Suzanne Smith. I'm a veterinarian, and I am registered to work in Jamaica, but in order to work there, licensed to work in Jamaica, I should say, but in order to work there, I would have to have a work permit. I just wanted to say that. And another comment, just to add to what has gone on before, in 2015, I did some research for our family reunion, and our family are the Aswood family, and we traced it back to Turks and Caicos. And prior to that, those ancestors came from Bermuda. But they stayed in Turks and Caicos for a generation because the Bahamians said that they needed to stay there. They could no longer trade and come back and forth because Bermuda was doing so well for over a century, having traded with salt. So then it got into a big conflict. It went over to the UK. The UK then told Bermuda, you can't be a colony and have a colony. So then they took the control that Bermuda had in Turks and Caicos and gave it to Jamaica, and Jamaica was sorting that out. And I just wanted to say there was a big hurricane that took place in the 1800s, and the Bermuda government of the day, because I actually did some reading, I can't recall all of it, but the parliament said we need to extend and help our cousins to the south. So they actually invited, because the infrastructure at Turks and Caicos had broken down, so they invited them to come here. So my grandmother's grandfather came here, and he was a principal, and he started off in St. George's, but he worked as a principal at the, currently where Hasco is today. That was a school, a glebe school. So they established the glebe lands and Bishop Spencer and all on and goes. So we go back what they did back then supported us, and they
Ma'am,
invited our
I'm sorry.
family to come back.
We're out of time, and can
Okay,
you
my
please your question? Thank
sorry,
you.
but I just
Thank
wanted
you
to
for that.
jump in. It's very interesting. Anyway, the story of us. Montserrat has already, on page 8, I see in the green paper, it says that Montserrat has already changed from associate member status and appears to be the first overseas dependent territory to become a full CARICOM member. How has it fared so far? And what has the UK done to support its new status? What can we learn from that?
Thank you for your question.
Montserrat is an interesting case. They are a founding member of the Treaty of Chaguaramas. So they were there when it was ratified in '73. The revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, they have not been permitted to sign. And so they are a full member, but they are not part of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. Meaning that they cannot participate in all of the things, just as we cannot by way of the CSME, etc., as a non-sovereign full member.
Sir.
Thanks. I'd like to thank you guys because this was great. Even though we got a lot of politics and we had a lot of listening to do instead of talking, which is not like Bermudians, as we know. I want to pick on Mr. Parent-Chief, though. He kind of left out when he talked about Trumpism and bashing Trump, which people do love to do these days. He forgot about Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was a tense time. And also, I think President Reagan invaded Grenada. I think it was Reagan. I can't remember exactly, but I might stand corrected on that. So there were other times. Now, did you say that you had taken up St. Kitts citizenship?
Yes.
Okay, just to know. My comment is this. There's a lot of people like myself who would say, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so that lends itself to not supporting the admission to CARICOM because we've got it pretty good, and we think we've got it pretty good. You know, the food thing, I mean, if we're going to have to import food from the Caribbean, we're going to be in trouble because it's expensive enough as it is with a 700-mile journey from New Jersey. Imagine coming from Guyana or Belize or Antigua. Antigua grows a lot of sweet potatoes, and they tend to live on those. And I don't think that's what we want. So that's my comments. And
Well, the question for you, you said we have it pretty good. Who's the we you're referring to?
I'm talking about the whole island. I'm talking about us. And when I say us, I mean everybody. And yes, there are people that have bad times. There are a lot of poor people in Bermuda. There are a lot of rich people. But altogether, I think we're doing pretty well. I'm certainly not one of those wealthy people. Let's get that straight. On this business thing, there are a lot of businesses in the Caribbean that are Bermudian. And we don't want to forget that. We don't need CARICOM to expand our economy. Our economy, whether it be international business or tourism or island glass or colonial insurance or the Gibbons people with water down in BVI or any one of many businesses you can talk about, they've succeeded. They've done their own thing. And we can do our own thing. I never got down to the Caribbean with my business, but anybody that wants to have a business can have a business anywhere. It's just a matter of jumping through the hoops. And it's been done.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. On that note, I would like to get each of our panelists to say, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's someone there.
We will take you as the last.
Thank you.
One question.
So page 17 of the document mentions technical assistance and public service capacity building, and page 39 talks about building stronger global partnerships. And so my question is,
Are these opportunities not already available to us via the UK?
Thank you.
I know that there are often outreach to the governor to figure out if there might be technical capacity building. I know that there are small, most recently, I've been privy to the fact that a few technical officers have come down, but I think that there is an unmistakable alignment in terms of how we do governance as coming and having shared historical and colonial ties in terms of public service and the reform. We have permanent secretaries now who have been able to easily integrate into our context without the need for kind of, the transposition of cultural and alignment in terms of how we do business in Bermuda. And so these things are available, but this is another opportunity that CARICOM offers. And it is not a decision about, can we get this, can we do this elsewhere? There are many things that CARICOM offers that we could also get in piecemeal elsewhere. That is not what we're seeking to justify. What we're seeking to define is around how we deepen engagement with an organization to be able to best advocate for the interests that also are in Bermuda's best interest. So it's not really about, a specific benefit. It is also, this is there also are benefits that Bermuda can be extended to through these different forums, sectors, and also opportunities. But it's around advocacy, it's around being part of a discussion that impacts Bermuda, and it's around how we are building on relationships that are already preceded us on stage and involve them in current state, which is the spirit of the previous letters that have gone out, seeking to do the same as it relates to Bermuda and deepening its ties, recognizing that the region itself was actually best for us to deepen our engagement with. So we build on that. And we honor not only the historical connection, but also the shared opportunities that exist. If you think about even from a procurement perspective, and I know that we're wrapping up, the ability from a procurement perspective to be part of a procurement deal, which then considers Bermuda as one of many jurisdictions that is receiving a good or service, that immediately is a lowered cost, because each of us individually having procurement opportunities is an added cost. It has, immense and incremental costs associated with it. And so why not be able to benefit when it is already within reach?
I know, MP Famous, you wanted to answer that, but what I would like to do is, in sort of addressing that question, give your final thoughts for our audience this evening, and then we'll go to Mr. Parent-Chief for final thoughts, and then to our minister to wrap up closing remarks.
Well, I want to thank each and every one that has come out in this rainy weather to talk about us as a whole. I see Mr. Gary Foster scouting. I will make sure that you put nice clips up of us. Everybody clap Gary. He's a very... Also clap Mr. Hendrickson from the Royal Gazette. Stay on, Mr. Hendrickson. We want to make sure we get credible reporting tomorrow or tonight. But I want to thank each and every one of us that has come out tonight, because this isn't, for me personally, this, rather as one of the questions, what if Britain says no? What if CARICOM says no? The narrative of us doing this should not solely be about CARICOM. It's about us. We have to tell our story, no matter where we come from. When the Portuguese first came here, they were told to stop speaking Portuguese, right? I want to recognize MP Decudo, right? The fact of the matter is, as victims of colonialism, we were told to stop being who we are and to try to be more Anglo. And this is part of the problem why we, as the current administration, we're basically starting from scratch, talking about the story of us. The story of us is not about black people. The story of us is about us as Bermudian, and talking about all of our origins. As Dr. Smith just said, the majority of people in Turks and Caicos come from Bermuda. They sound like us. That's part of the story that's not being told. So again, for me, this isn't solely about CARICOM. This is about talking about our true history. I want to thank my art teacher, Mr. Otto Trott, because it's part of what expression. Thank you.
Mr. Parent-Chief?
Yes, I want to echo the sentiments of Mr. Favors just now, but I'd like to answer the gentleman there who made the comment that if it's not broken, then don't fix it. I got to go there. I've heard that ever since we talked about independence and sovereignty. But it's not a question of if it's not broken, then don't fix it. It's a question of it being the status quo. And the status quo just isn't working. What has happened is that it's not a question of it being broken or not. It's a question that it's just been outgrown, much like the computer that has taken over the typewriter. The typewriter isn't broken, it's just been outgrown. So we have to evolve beyond the typewriter and move towards a greater technology that allows us to grow as people. I also take the view that Mr. Famous took. I'm glad that everyone has come out, because this interchange, this interaction makes us all grow and makes us all be able to voice and learn more, because I often hear people saying, oh, I don't have enough information. And they said that during the time when, back with Premier Alex Scott, when he brought about the BIC, Bermuda Independence Commission, which gave a lot of information. So it's really that we have to have this discourse and to have this interchange so that we can evolve. And I say, in my vernacular, evolve beyond the phrase, if it's not broken, then don't fix it. Because what is just does not distribute in an equanimous way the bounty of this society. And I think we should stretch out and move out, and because the prices are high from a place closer to us, does not mean because the place is further away that the prices will be any higher. It's all about how you negotiate your trade agreements. Even those products that come as far away as China sometimes are cheaper than those from America. There we are.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Parent Chief. Let's give Mr. Parent Chief a warm welcome for being here today. Thank you. Minister, closing remarks from you. What should we leave our audience with this evening?
Thank you. I want to first thank my co-panelists, Mr. Parent Chief, MP Famous, yourself as moderator on your birthday. Can we wish happy birthday to Dana? 31 now? She's 32 today. No, I'm grateful for each of you also for taking the opportunity to join us here this evening, and also to the ministry staff, the Department of Communications, and its director. I do acknowledge each of you for taking the time to hear and also be with us here. We are thankful also to Reverend Tweed. I see MP Swan also here, so I do want to acknowledge him. But the story of us and the green paper relating to CARICOM's membership, or deepening our ties with CARICOM, and the opportunity that it presents, is one that allows us and invites you who are gathered in this room to reimagine our current state. I think we have each noted things that are no longer the same, whether it be from the fact that we don't use the dial-up phone, we don't use calling cards. We have evolved through technology. We have evolved in the way that we communicate. And this is an invitation to evolve how Bermuda and its interests are represented. It also is an invitation to evolve our thinking about other countries that are like us, to see how we might be able to better align and grow with them. It does not suggest that there will be perfection. It does not suggest that there will be things that we don't navigate better here at home. But what it does say is that there are things that we do not navigate well, and we have an opportunity to grow and also to share. The decision relating to CARICOM is not a final decision. It is not one that actually the government decides. But what we are seeking to declare is our intention building on what we know for a fact is our historical ties, and also building on the shared and common challenges that we know that they are navigating, from energy security to food security to climate resilience. These are all things that we ought not be navigating in isolation. We all need friends. Every country has been you see it on the global scale where they're finding relationships beyond the traditional relationships. And so I leave with you the invitation to suspend the preconditioned views and to say, well, what if it actually was better? Because what we don't know is what we don't know, but for us being able to deepen the relationship. We are in the room, but we are not part of the granular decisions. And sometimes we're not even in the room, quite frankly. And so I think Bermuda has evolved to a mature state and standing, and this evidences our ability to be as mature as we believe ourselves to be, to say how we might be able to best advocate for ourselves. And so I'm grateful for the discussion. This will not be the last town hall. We invite feedback via the website, togetherforcaricom.gov.bm, and there's also an opportunity to email. We will also have multiple town halls. We're seeking to do another on either side of the island, but you're also sent with a charge to tell your friends and colleagues and neighbors to read the green paper. How many have actually read the green paper? Raise your hand. Okay, more than usual. And so I thank you for doing so, but to also share with your colleagues and friends so that they too can learn, because it's not about the government telling you what you may not necessarily have read and understood for yourself. Go online, listen to other leaders, and see what they have to share as well, because Bermuda doesn't believe that we are part of the Caribbean, but they see us as part of them, which is the irony. And so we ought to lean into that. When I talked to the heads of government and said, well, I just want to know, what are your views on Bermuda's deep intention to deepen ties? They're like, why not? That's exactly what we already believe you to be. We would love to be able to capacity build with you. And so why wouldn't we want to lean into that opportunity? And so I thank you for being here this evening. I thank Reverend Tweed for allowing us to be here in his house, as I call it. But it has been a great evening.
Thank you, Minister. I want to thank our panel, thank each of you for showing up this evening, for engaging and being a part of this robust discussion. To our government representatives who are here this evening, thank you for showing up. To our members of the opposition that have come out, thank you. Our production team, St. Paul's, thanks to each of you for coming out and being a part of this. I'd like to say a special thank you to the Minister, Ms. Alexa Lightbourne, for leading this discussion and bringing this all together with her team to fruition. We want to thank Mr. Phil Parent-Chief for your insight, MP Famous for your connection and sharing your vision with us. Thank you. This is, as the Minister indicated, this is an ongoing process, and your voice matters. As you leave, we would like to encourage you to visit the website, togetherforcaricom.gov.bm, and we also have QR codes that we'd like you to fill out the survey for this evening. Please, if you haven't been able to share your questions, share your questions with us, keep in contact. And I want to say, please have a great, safe evening. This is my birthday. I want to have all good news for the rest of the day. So get home safely and good night.